Welcome to my channel FemVision. I never thought a simple bet could change my life. Seriously. I had laughed at the idea when my friends first dared me. Walk a whole day in heels. No way. But that laugh, that confident dismissive laugh, was the last shred of my normal life I had left. It started after a long night at Jamie's apartment. The group of us had gathered after school, sprawled across the living room with snacks and music, joking, laughing, teasing each other like we always did. I was comfortable, safe, confident. The guy who could do anything, who wouldn't flinch at a challenge. Or so I thought. And then she said it. "Come on, you're such a wimp," said Veronica, her voice teasing but sharp, like she could see straight through me. "You'd cry after 10 minutes in heels. Bet you couldn't even walk to the corner store." I scoffed, leaning back on the couch, feeling my chest puff with pride. That's easy. I could walk in heels all day if I had to." The room erupted with laughter. Jamie smirked. Veronica raised an eyebrow. And I was trapped before I realized it. "You're on," she said. The words were soft, teasing, but lethal. "I'll give you the shoes, and if you survive 1 hour outside the apartment, I'll give you $20. $20. Insulting. But somehow, I couldn't say no. Veronica disappeared into her closet and came back with them. A pair of black patent heels, sleek, shiny, almost mocking in their elegance. I stared at them like they were alien. "You really think you can handle these?" she asked, smirking. I tried to sound confident. "Of course." Then she handed them to me. The first time I touched them, I froze. They weren't just shoes. They were a warning. The leather was stiff, glossy, unyielding. The heel felt intimidating. I slipped my foot in, and my entire body tensed. The other foot followed. Suddenly, every step I tried to take wobbled, shook, felt precarious. "Careful," Veronica said, suppressing a grin. "I told you it's harder than it looks." I bit my lip, trying to maintain my pride, but the second I tried to walk across the apartment, my legs betrayed me. I stumbled. My balance faltered. And suddenly the room was full of laughter, my own included. But it wasn't just funny. It was humiliating. Every wobble, every misstep made me painfully aware of how unfamiliar, how unnatural, how wrong this body felt in shoes that weren't sneakers. The clock ticked. I had to go outside. The bet required it. I gripped the heels like life depended on them and stepped out. Immediately the world shifted. Sidewalks weren't flat. Curbs weren't forgiving. Every crack in the pavement threatened to swallow me. People passed by, glancing. Some smirked. Some stared. Some laughed. I wanted to shrink. To disappear. And yet, I kept moving. Because backing out now wasn't an option. Step by step, I discovered muscles I didn't know I had. Legs shaking. Ankles wobbling. Heart hammering. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. But then, something unexpected happened. I noticed the sound. The click of the heels on the pavement. Loud, assertive, echoing. Powerful. And slowly I began to adjust. Balance shifted. Confidence crept in. Step by step, wobble by wobble. I was walking. Not perfectly. Not easily. But I was walking. By the time I reached the corner store, my legs were trembling, my calves burning, my face flushed. But something else had changed. I caught my reflection in the glass door. The heels elongated my legs, accentuated my posture. I looked taller, sleeker, undeniably different. And I liked it. More than that, I loved it. I had expected humiliation, embarrassment, pain. Instead, I felt exhilarated. A new awareness pulsed through me with every step I took. Every glance, every click, every movement. I noticed how it felt to exist differently, to be seen differently. It wasn't just the shoes. It was the way my body responded. The sway of my hips, the tilt of my shoulders, the strength I didn't know I had in balancing myself. I had never been so in tune with myself. The irony? This bet meant to mock me had taught me something profoundly intimate. When I returned, the apartment was filled with smirks, giggles, and teasing remarks. "You made it," Veronica said, mockingly proud. Jamie clapped. I laughed too, though a little breathless. But inside, my heart raced with a secret thrill. I enjoyed it. I could feel it. The way my body responded, the subtle changes in my posture, the sway that made my balance not just functional but graceful. The sound of my heels clicking across the floor wasn't clumsy anymore. It was commanding. I had never thought that such a small, humiliating challenge could unlock this side of me. The side that could feel strong, confident, and undeniably feminine. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a bet anymore. This was a revelation. The next morning, I woke up sore in muscles I didn't even know existed. Calves, ankles, the small muscles in my feet, all protesting. But beneath the soreness, there was an undeniable thrill. Yesterday had been a disaster, a challenge, a humiliation, and yet I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had walked in heels. Really walked. Not perfectly. Not gracefully. But I had survived and something inside me had clicked. I stretched slowly, feeling my toes curl instinctively as if trying to replicate the feeling of the heels again. I can do this again, I whispered to myself. More confidently this time. More deliberately. I had promised myself I would take it slow today. No one needed to know about the bet, not yet. But I couldn't ignore the subtle pull of wanting to experiment more, to see how far I could push it. I slipped into the sneakers I had left behind yesterday and carried the black patent heels in my bag. By the time I walked out of my room, my stomach was a fluttering storm of nerves and anticipation. Jamie and Veronica were waiting outside the classroom. "You're really doing this, huh?" Veronica smirked when she saw the shoes. I shrugged, trying to act nonchalant, though my pulse had already started racing. "You're insane," Jamie said with a laugh. "But I guess that's why we love you." I smiled. A little nervously. And slipped the heels on quietly under the desk before class began. Every step toward my seat was a delicate negotiation between balance and subtlety. The first few steps were wobbly, but I adjusted quickly, aware of every muscle. My heart pounded in my chest with each click of the heels against the floor. No one seemed to notice at first. Just another student entering the room. Just another day. But as the lesson progressed, I felt it. A subtle shift in the way people were watching me. Curious glances. Slight smiles. Whispers I couldn't quite catch. My cheeks heated. Was it embarrassment? Or excitement? Lunch was the hardest part. Sitting among my friends, balancing the heels and my newfound awareness of my body, I felt every movement exaggerated. Every laugh. Every gesture. Every glance from a classmate was amplified. Yet beneath the embarrassment, there was power. Confidence. A subtle control I had never known. Even the way I crossed my legs in those heels felt commanding. "You're walking differently," Veronica whispered as we sat at the table. I laughed nervously. "Yeah. Trying something new." She smirked knowingly. I could feel her watching, enjoying my reaction. And I realized with a quiet thrill that I was enjoying it too. The rest of the day was a series of small tests. Walking in hallways crowded with students. Navigating stairs. Balancing textbooks on one arm while keeping my posture intact. Each moment felt like a battle and a victory all at once. And as the day wore on, I noticed something subtle but undeniable. I was moving differently. Not just in heels but as a person. More aware. More deliberate. More confident. Even my voice changed slightly. Softer, melodic, lighter when I spoke to people. I caught myself noticing these shifts and blushed, heart hammering. I was becoming the person the heels were shaping me into. And I liked it. Walking home after school, the sun was warm against my face, but my mind was racing. The heels made every step deliberate. Every sway conscious. And yet it felt natural. I passed people on the street, some looking, some admiring, some probably judging. I didn't care. Because something inside me had shifted. For the first time I was exploring who I could be, rather than who everyone expected me to be. By the time I reached my apartment, I was exhausted but exhilarated. The bet had started as a joke. A humiliation. But it had become an experiment in self-discovery. I slipped off the heels, toes aching, and stared at them for a long moment. "You're not just shoes," I whispered. "You're a challenge. A doorway. A change." That night, lying in bed, I thought about every glance, every stumble, every click on the sidewalk. I thought about the subtle shift in my posture, my balance, my voice. I thought about how my friends watched me with curiosity and quiet approval. And I realized something terrifying and thrilling. I liked it. I wanted it. Not just the heels. Not just the physical transformation. But the person they were helping me become. For the first time in a long time I felt seen. Not as myself, the guy I had always been. But as someone new. Someone alive. Someone daring to explore a side of themselves I didn't even know existed. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat on my bedroom floor staring at the heels. The black patent leather gleamed under the soft glow of my lamp. They weren't just shoes anymore. They were a challenge, a key, a temptation. My fingers traced the curve of the heel, the smooth surface, the delicate straps, and I felt my heartbeat quicken. I couldn't explain why, but the thought of wearing them alone in my own space without anyone watching thrilled me in a way I hadn't expected. I slipped them on slowly, savoring the click of the heels against my hardwood floor. The sound filled the silent room like an electric pulse. I took a tentative step forward. My legs wobbled at first, but then I felt it. A subtle rhythm forming, a sway, a balance that was becoming second nature. I laughed quietly at myself. I can't believe I'm enjoying this, I whispered. I spent the next hour practicing. First just walking in straight lines, then curves, then steps up and down the low platform of my bed. Every movement was a lesson. I learned how to shift my weight, how to lift my toes slightly at each step, how to engage muscles I didn't know existed. With every practice step, I noticed subtle changes. My back straightened. My shoulders softened. My arms moved more naturally at my sides. Even my head tilted slightly differently, giving me a sense of elegance I had never experienced before. I felt alive. A thrill surged through me as I realized that this wasn't just about walking in heels. It was about becoming someone I had never allowed myself to be. Curiosity overtook me. I stepped in front of the full-length mirror. At first the sight shocked me. The reflection was both me and not me. Legs elongated, posture poised, every small movement radiating confidence. I experimented with my walk, my stance, even subtle facial expressions. Tilting my chin, arching an eyebrow, shifting my weight from one foot to another. It was exhilarating to see the change in the person staring back at me. I smiled softly, unsure why the mirror had become such a source of fascination. Was it vanity? Maybe. But it was more than that. I was discovering a side of myself that had always been hidden, waiting for a spark to ignite it. The heels opened a door I hadn't expected, experimenting with clothes. I dug through my closet, pulling out items I had never dared wear before. Skirts, fitted tops, soft fabrics, flowing scarves. Each piece felt different against my skin, each texture and shape revealing a new way of existing in my body. I tried on an outfit, a short skirt, a silky blouse, the heels, and studied myself in the mirror. I was aware of every curve, every line, every sway. I moved deliberately, testing how fabric draped over me, how the heels accentuated my stance, how my body adapted to these small experiments. The sensation was intoxicating. I twirled slowly, feeling the fabric move, listening to the subtle clicks of the heels, watching the reflection in the mirror. Each motion reinforced a feeling I had never known. Empowerment. In the quiet of my room, I began to explore more than just the physical aspects. I experimented with voice, softening, elongating syllables, speaking in a slightly higher register. I practiced gestures, subtle movements of the hands and arms, the tilt of the head, the curve of a smile. It felt like learning a new language. A language of presence, of confidence, of femininity that wasn't forced but gradually unfolding. I even practiced sitting and standing, walking across the room, pausing, pivoting, each motion becoming more fluid, more natural. The room became my stage, my sanctuary, my laboratory for self-discovery. It wasn't just physical. With each experiment, I felt emotions rise I had never allowed myself to feel. Pride, curiosity, desire, joy, and a strange, electric anticipation. I caught myself smiling softly at the reflection, whispering encouragements, celebrating small victories. Yes, you did it, perfect. There was a tension between embarrassment and exhilaration that fueled me. Being alone gave me permission to explore fully, to let go of judgment, and to immerse myself in the sensations and identity that the heels were awakening. It was private, intimate, and thrilling. Days passed and I fell into a ritual. Each night I experimented with new outfits, different heels, subtle makeup, hairstyles I had never dared try before. The room became a world unto itself. A safe space where I could inhabit this version of myself fully. I began to understand nuances of movement. How to shift weight gracefully, how to carry my arms naturally, how to pivot, how to take a step that spoke confidence without arrogance. Every time I looked in the mirror, I felt more connected to the reflection. More in tune with the body. more aware of who I could be when no one else was watching. It was intoxicating. Eventually, I couldn't stay confined to my room. I wanted to test this version of myself in the real world. The thrill of private practice evolved into the desire for public validation. Not for attention, not for approval, but to see if I could carry this identity outside my walls. I chose a quiet weekend. Slipped on a modest skirt, a fitted blouse, and the heels I had grown comfortable with. Soft makeup. Hair brushed carefully. I stepped outside, heart pounding, aware of every sound, every movement, every subtle sway. At first the street felt foreign. Each step was measured, deliberate, cautious. But as I walked, as I felt the familiar rhythm of my body adapting to the heels, a surge of exhilaration and pride pulsed through me. No one stared. No one mocked. No one commented. And that absence of reaction felt like freedom. Walking in public, I realized the depth of the transformation. This wasn't just about heels. It was about presence. About awareness of self. About inhabiting a body and identity I had never allowed myself to explore. Every glance at my reflection in a shop window, every subtle adjustment, every graceful step reinforced the excitement and liberation I felt. I had discovered a secret pleasure in movement, in style, in identity, one that was intimate, empowering, and utterly consuming. The weekend started like any other, quiet and safe. I had spent hours practicing in my room, walking, spinning, perfecting the small nuances I had discovered during my private experimentation. But today felt different. Today, I decided it was time to step beyond the safety of my bedroom, beyond the comfort of empty streets, beyond the casual glances that never lingered. I had agreed to meet Veronica and Jamie at the mall. A small, casual outing, or so they said. But in my mind it was a test. The ultimate experiment. Could I exist as this version of myself in front of my friends, in public, fully seen? I woke up early. My heels, the glossy black pair that had become both friend and challenge, sat neatly by my dresser. I stared at them for a long moment. Today I wouldn't hide. Today I would walk tall, step by step, embrace every sway and click with confidence. I selected an outfit that felt daring but safe, a fitted skirt that accentuated my legs, a soft blouse that flowed slightly over my shoulders, and delicate accessories that completed the look. Hair brushed, makeup subtle but enhancing, lips lightly tinted. When I looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize the person staring back. Every detail screamed femininity, grace, confidence, and yet there was still the nervous flutter in my chest. The stakes were high. Today someone might notice, someone might challenge me, and I had no idea how I'd react. The doors of the mall swung open, a wave of air conditioning and the faint scent of coffee and perfume washing over me. Veronica and Jamie were waiting near the entrance, chatting with casual ease. I could feel their eyes on me as I approached. "Wow," Veronica said, smirking. "Looking impressive," Jamie added, a teasing lilt in his voice. My chest tightened, but I smiled. Not nervously, intentionally. I lifted my chin, adjusted my posture, and clicked forward. Every step was deliberate, measured, graceful. I could feel the subtle sway of my hips, the rhythm of the heels beneath me. Veronica raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Okay, you've clearly been practicing." I laughed softly, hiding the rush of adrenaline that surged through me. As we moved through the mall, the crowds thickened. Shoppers of all ages moved around us, some stopping, some glancing. Every step was magnified, every click of the heels amplified. I felt their eyes even when they weren't looking directly at me. I imagined judgment, amusement, curiosity. And yet, I didn't falter. Each step was a deliberate assertion of presence, a subtle declaration. I exist in this body, in this identity, and I belong here. Jamie whispered, "You're surprisingly good at this." Veronica laughed softly. "You're almost scary confident." The praise, teasing though it was, fueled me. I felt exhilarated, aware of every movement, every small gesture. The mall, once intimidating, became a stage. I walked as if I owned the space. Halfway through, I caught a reflection in a store window. My posture, my movement, my entire demeanor. It was different. Not just the heels. Not just the clothes. Me. And then I noticed someone staring. Not casually. Not briefly. But really staring. A girl about my age, seated at a cafe table, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. My heart skipped. Did she recognize me? Did she see something unusual? I swallowed, adjusted my stance and kept moving, trying to maintain the fluidity I had worked so hard to master. My mind raced. Does she know? Should I smile? Act normal? The girl's gaze followed me until we turned a corner. I exhaled slowly, realizing that the attention hadn't broken me, it had empowered me. We stopped at a kiosk Veronica wanted to browse. As she leaned in, she whispered, "Let's make it more interesting. You're so confident now, how about a real challenge? Walk to the food court, order something, carry it back without wobbling. And no leaning on anyone." My stomach dropped. Public food court. Full of people. Full of eyes. But then, a thrill pulsed through me. I nodded. "I can do it." Veronica grinned, clearly excited to watch me attempt it. Jamie raised his eyebrows, unsure whether to be worried or impressed. I stepped out of the kiosk and into the open space. Every movement felt amplified. My heels clicked on the tiles, echoing faintly. Patrons glanced up, some whispering, some smirking, some simply moving past. I felt the weight of their observation, the subtle scrutiny of strangers. And I realized I didn't care. Not anymore. Each step was deliberate. Each sway of my hips natural. Each adjustment of my shoulders precise. I approached the counter, ordered politely, smiled naturally, and accepted the tray with both hands. Balancing it was tricky. My arms trembled slightly and the tray wobbled. But I corrected quickly, adjusted my stance, and took measured steps back toward Veronica and Jamie. A soft cheer from Jamie. "Holy, you actually did it." Veronica clapped slowly, smirking, clearly impressed. I laughed softly, a mix of relief and pride. I had survived the ultimate public test, and not just survived. I had thrived. Walking back to the kiosk, my mind raced. This thrill, this new awareness, this powerful presence, it wasn't just temporary. It wasn't just for a bet. I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. I wanted more. More than the heels. More than the experimentation. More than Veronica's teasing challenges. I wanted to embrace this side of myself fully. I wanted to see how far I could go. I wanted to feel this confident, empowered, and alive every day. The thought scared me. And yet it thrilled me. As we exited the mall, Veronica nudged me. "One more thing," she said with a mischievous glint. "Let's see how you handle stairs." The escalator was out of order. Steps, crowded and public. My stomach flipped. The heels, the weight, the rhythm, all of it now mattered more than ever. I positioned myself at the bottom, took a deep breath, and began to ascend. Step by step, carefully, deliberately. Each click echoed in the air. My muscles burned. My balance teetered. A small gasp escaped me as I nearly slipped, but I corrected instantly. Halfway up, I noticed a group of teens watching. Some smirked. Some whispered. My face flushed, heart pounding. And then I felt it. The exhilaration. The thrill of doing something that felt impossible. The triumph of mastering it in front of people who could judge or laugh. And not faltering. I reached the top. Smooth. Balanced. Confident. Jamie and Veronica cheered. The rush of adrenaline, pride, and validation surged through me like fire. I laughed aloud, breathless, exhilarated. And in that moment I realized. I wasn't just walking in heels. I wasn't just fulfilling a bet. I was walking into a new version of myself.